Bonjour everyone, I am Annelise Caillez and welcome to Parlez-Vous CEO, where we teach the corporate talk and get real about entrepreneurship. Each week, I chat with founders and CEOs who build businesses their way, through the failures, pivots, and breakthroughs. And they bring the fire. Plus, I'll drop some golden nuggets of wisdom from my own entrepreneurial journey. This is your space to grow, learn, and evolve with a true growth mindset. Remember, success isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Now let's kick things off and get this party started. Hello, bonjour, hello. Welcome to another episode of Parlez-Vous CEO. My name is Annelise Caillez and I am your host, and I am super excited to have with me today Katie Candaris-Wiener from Arizona. So meet Katie, a licensed professional counselor and founder of Inner Balance Counseling, specializing in trauma therapy and expanding into intensive outpatient programs in Arizona. Katie, in your own words and for the people who are not familiar with you, would you share a little bit about your story and background?
Yeah. So I grew up in Arizona and I went to college at ASU. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I really found my passion when I started running support groups for teens with lost loved ones. And that was during my undergrad. And I never knew how much giving back and hearing someone's story would mean. And so I went on to grad school in Chicago, and then I did my internship with one of the vulnerable populations, the severely mentally ill. And I love that as well, as crazy as that sounds. But I hated snow, so I came home to Arizona, and my family lives here, and there's a large population here who really need help. So I started off doing a lot of substance abuse counseling, detox, and I ended up working with a lot of young adults. And I kept seeing my clients relapse, and some didn't make it. And I could not figure out exactly why. But the more reading I did, the more things I did, I realized trauma was a huge piece that was never addressed. So I ended up getting trained in EMDR, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing therapy to help my clients with that. A few years later, I started my own private practice, put out my own shingle, but I missed having a team. I missed supervising people and watching others grow. And I also realized that a lot of their new baby therapists, our interns, our new licensed associate counselors do not have a place to land. They are thrown into large community mental health settings, which are needed, but there's not enough resources and time to train them, to help them really succeed. And that, along with being able to help more clients, was really my aim in starting Inner Balance. It was like the training and the supervising, the growth of others, not just our clients, but those around us, that really inspired me to do that. And so I thought I'd take on like 2 people and it would just be the 3 of us. And over the last 5 years, we've grown from 2 to 16 therapists, 1 intern, 2 and 3 admin. And we just continue to help those with trauma. And the way it's gone the last 5 years, there's a lot of people we're able to help.
What an amazing story, Katie. Thank you for sharing. And so you are launching an intensive outpatient program using new evidence-based curriculum for dissociation treatment. Can you walk us through this expansion and what drove this decision?
Yeah. So I went to actually, can I look up the person it's from? Can't remember. Dear Lord. Okay. I'm going to try to pronounce their names right so I give them credit where credit's deserved. So, we've been helping a lot of people. However, we've been also referring a lot of people out. And there are a few good programs here in Arizona, but there aren't as many as we need. So we're seeing a need for a higher level of care and what we call for a higher level of acuity of client. You know, the past 5 years have been a roller coaster, to say the least. And I think a lot of people are experiencing the fallout from the disconnection they felt during COVID. We're social beings. We need each other. That's how we heal and connect. So one of the new programs that's come out, and it's called Finding Solid Ground. Finding Solid Ground is that was done during COVID, actually, through telehealth, is a program for those with trauma, dissociation, who are exhibiting like self-harming, using substances, poor emotion regulation, overall they're just in a really bad spot. And they need more care than I can provide here right now. So intensive outpatient is usually around 3 days a week 3 hours each group with individual therapy. We normally provide right now 1, maybe 2 sessions a week. So it's a big step up. And so with this curriculum, it's found to have great results. It's our first ever research base for dissociation. There has never been one. And the results have been amazing with decreasing rates of self-harm, improved emotion regulation, decreased rate of suicidal ideations and things like that. So I really want to provide this to the community and to provide for those clients that I feel like might be falling through the cracks because they don't need to go to inpatient. They don't need to go to the hospital, but they're not appropriate for 1 time a week. And so where do they fall? Where do they go? And there's a lot of programs, but there aren't as many that focus on trauma specifically. And so I wanted to be able to fill that gap. And on the flip side, I wanted to be able to give my new therapists or even my more seasoned ones a chance to do something different. It can get really boring doing the same thing every day for 10, 20 years. Most therapists actually really love groups. We love group work. And so it gives my therapists a new experience because I want to build a community where people stay. And we worked really, really hard the last couple of years on defining what our community looks like at Inner Balance, what our values are, and creating a place where people want to stay, where they feel welcome, not just as a client, but as an employee. Happy people do better. Happy people produce better results. And I know that while therapy, every session is different, sometimes it's nice to mix it up and do something that you don't normally do. And so the IOP will also give that outlet for some of my therapists to switch up what they're doing, practice new or skills they haven't used in a while, while also helping the community.
That's fascinating what you're describing. So you're saying that therapists can get bored after doing 10 to 20 years the same thing. And at the same time, you're saying, but each person is different. So why do you feel that it gets repetitive after a while, since people are so different? Or do you see that it's always the same pattern and people have the same issues because we're all human and connected? Why do you feel the work of a therapist gets repetitive after a while?
I guess bored is not the right term. We get burnt out. It's not that we get bored. We get what's called compassion fatigue, where there's nothing left to give, and we become apathetic because there's nothing left for ourselves. And with the increase in, the trauma and even just the people we're seeing week to week, the acuity, the severity of symptoms has gone up. And so where that boundary and the ability to hold the space can be really difficult, especially when you do trauma work. 10 years into this, when I started my private practice, I had been in the field for, I think, 6.5 years. And I was fine. But then by 2022, I'd been in the field for 10 years. And I was like, okay, I want to do something that's different, that is refreshing and just uses my skills in a different set.
And so how do you navigate that? And I love the concept of compassion fatigue, you called it.
Yes.
How do you navigate that as a therapist? How do you recharge, or how do you compartmentalize? How do you make it work?
Every therapist is a bit different, but one of the reasons I started Inner Balance was that there isn't anything like that in community mental health. They try, they do their best. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those places. They're absolutely needed. But as we know, the funding's short. We're short on people. Resources can only be stretched so thin. And so I wanted people to have that community be as well paid as I could afford to do it with insurance. And so they have that connection that revives them. They have, we call ourselves, they're the team, but they're also our family. And so it's a lot easier to go to work when you love your team. It's a lot easier when you know so-and-so's down the hall and you're going to chat later about this, or be able to share that this was a really hard session. And so that's part of the way we recharge. And it's also by emphasizing, take your PTO. Please take your PTO. You need a day off? Just let us know. And to really help them emphasize that. We also do 4-day work weeks. Everyone needs a bit more. Sometimes the days are a little longer, but I really want people to spend time with their families. I really want them to get away from work. They'll be fine. Everyone's going to be fine till Monday or Tuesday, whenever you come in. So that's some of the ways we do it. We also, in individual supervision and group, talk about it. We talked about it today, actually. We were going over the topic of sleep. And I had just been to a conference 2 weeks ago. And we all know sleep's important, but I didn't realize how much sleep was important on like just the basic like brain functions and also at the deeper levels. And so we talked about that and how important it is. It sounds simple, but how many of us don't do it? And so we try to help our clinicians by truly asking them, are you okay? You don't, and sometimes calling them out a little bit. You do not look okay. What is going on? And trying to listen to them and spend time with them instead of it just be about the numbers. Some of it has to be, like, otherwise the lights don't stay on. But to really create a different culture.
I remember, Katie, when we met last time, you mentioned that during COVID, a lot of things changed around mental health and
Yes.
particularly around marketing in the mental health space. So how do you feel that you adapted your approach over the last 5 years?
That's a big question. So not only did we have to change the way we were doing therapy, and the marketing. So first we had to change what we were doing. I had only had one telehealth client in all my career when COVID hit. We didn't do telehealth. It wasn't covered by insurance. The technology wasn't exactly there. We didn't even know if it worked well. So we all had to just make this shift like immediately. And I think during that time, we learned how that could be helpful and how some clients still needed in person. So we got to learn a new set of skills to then be able to service a lot more people. Like I couldn't give someone services, therapy if they lived 200 miles away. They weren't going to drive to my office once a week. But now we can do that. So we focused a lot of our marketing on how we could fit into your life without all the stress of the getting there and coming back. We could do it on your lunch hour. We can do it whenever from your car. Now, we have certain rules around it and privacy and things to make sure everything's confidential still, but we changed it to matching what fits in people's lives instead of just, here's our times and our appointments, you have to come in. And we changed a lot of that and marketed to that to see like, okay, people aren't coming in. During COVID, yeah. But even after, like people live very busy lives. Instead of making it this thing you have to drop everything, drive a half hour, have a session, drive another half hour back. And like that can take up 2 hours out of your day. Most of us can't like say, hi, I'm going to go 2 hours to my therapy session to your boss and then leave and come back. Most people do have a lunch break. Some people can move it. So that was one way we adapted is like saying, okay, this is what it is. We're not going to fight it. How do we lean into it? Even though we were all very uncomfortable and we had no idea what we were doing. And it was scary. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. But on Monday, we were there, and on Friday, the state was closed. So we had to flip really fast. We've also done a lot more social media and reaching out and providing resources. If someone goes to our website, and we often get this comment, they're like, we love your website. Why? Because we have so many blogs. We have so many resources. So even if you're not ready to commit to be a client, you can find something. I'm going to start doing TikToks because we're putting out new social media on different coping skills. And so not only will it be the post, but it'll have a video to go with it. And so that's another way we've changed is providing resources and talking to people about their symptoms, not the diagnosis. Telling them what we provide, EMDR therapy, cognitive behavioral, DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, and saying like, hey, these are the symptoms you might be having. You're not alone in that. Instead of it just being like this big diagnosis or these things that people don't relate to.
And Katie, so is that how you successfully market trauma and dissociation services while avoiding the exploitation of a vulnerable group by providing value?
We try to focus on the symptoms and the common experiences people have that they think aren't common, or like that they're not alone. They're not that symptom is not just them, that there are people that can help you with it. We don't have to name it's like this. If you want to explore our website, you could see like it might be this. We always caution, please don't diagnose yourself. It's kind of like when you got a headache and then you start Googling something and then you end up with brain cancer. So we tell people like, hey, the DSM that we use to diagnose is about 3 inches thick. Please don't try. Please identify with your symptoms. Please look for solutions. And so a lot of our marketing is providing solutions, providing support that you're not alone, that if you're feeling this, hey, there are other people, and hey, here's a resource that could help. So instead of focusing on like singling out those with trauma, we provide resources. We provide support. We say you're not alone. Because I never want to exploit anyone, but I do want to say like, hey, that feeling that you think you're going to die, is actually a panic attack and we can help you. You don't have to do this alone.
In your experience, Katie, have you found that getting more visibility online, doing more social media, have you found that the restrictions on mental health and doing marketing in mental health, has that been a difficulty?
Yes. So this September is Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month. We got kicked off of Meta for one of our posts, and we've had to try to get back in because it talked about suicide. But one of the things we know is that we don't want to hide it. That's how people don't reach out to help, how they're afraid to talk about it. But then we get flagged because it's got the word, but we're like, no, we're providing resources and support. So that's been tricky when we get kicked off of things, and then we've had to find other avenues. So that's been a bit of a challenge, having to go back and forth with Meta and Google and be like, no, we're not bad. It's not a bad thing. We're actually giving resources. That has been an interesting challenge, somewhat frustrating at times because you're like, oh my gosh, again.
And so for someone, therapist or clinic who is thinking about starting social media, what would be your recommendations for someone brand new and going in that space and trying out social for their work?
I think the best advice that I can give is decide what you can actually do consistently. Yes, you'd love to post to all these places, and we do now, but that's not how I started out. I started out with a couple of Facebook and Instagram posts because I could post to the same one through Instagram like a month. I didn't start out with doing everything. I tried to, and then it didn't work because you can't keep it consistent. I think make it something you can actually do consistently. Do it in batches. Don't try to do it every day. If you're a procrastinator, find a buddy, sit down in a coffee shop for an hour and do it. If you're going to make videos or other content, make sure it has a theme and it also aligns with who you are.
Absolutely. Those are great insights for anybody listening and thinking about going social media. Katie is sharing really insightful tips. If you're thinking about starting, is batching content, trying to be as authentic. I know it's easier said than done, but trying to show up as authentic as possible. And this is something you can learn. The beginning might feel a little cringe, might be a little uncomfortable. Doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It only means that you're starting. And it will get better with time. There is no way around the reps for videos and for this kind of work. Yes, you can hire a media coach, but you will have to do it a lot and it will feel cringe for a minute if you're not comfortable with the exercise, but it does get better.
It does. I was totally against it at first. And to be honest with you, I have been fighting with my marketing team for 2.5 years about doing TikToks. And I finally am like, okay, I'm going to do it this week. Hold me accountable. Because I like being behind the scenes. I don't necessarily like doing things where people see me. So learning and starting to lean into being uncomfortable. I do it in sessions all the time, but it's a skill I've had to grow about leaning in and being like, I'm just going to do it. And then we'll get, it'll get better in time.
Katie, in your opinion, why do you think it is such a common thing for people working in the mental health space, therapists, psychiatrists, that fear of visibility? Why do you think a lot of your peers have the same challenge?
I think there's a couple reasons. One, there's a big crowd of people who are shouting from the rooftops that are great and have very strong opinions. And that can be intimidating because you're like, I can't provide that all. I can't do that. And so we compare. I think another thing is we're used to being behind the scenes. We know tons about people's lives and they don't know anything about us. I know, and I never will share it with anyone. And so we're used to being, behind the curtain, as you would say. Like people come in, we help them with things. They go out and they do their lives. We know all about it, but we never interact with it. So we're really comfortable doing that. That's our kind of MO. And then we're like, oh, I have to be visible. Oh, I have to be vulnerable. And vulnerability is hard. I love Brene Brown and her talks about vulnerability and leaning into it. And it is hard, like, especially when you sit all day in sessions and you hold the space for everyone else. And then you're like, I don't want to be vulnerable. So those are some of it. I think navigating the changing rules and the programs and what's in and out can be a big challenge too. Like I'm feeling old now. My intern, is someone who I started high school the year she was born. And so I'm realizing the difference in what people are looking at and having to learn that, not just what I think, but now I've got to learn this whole new culture, if you will, for each generation. And that can be intimidating, going, oh my goodness, I don't know.
I think it takes a lot of courage to go online, and it's a very difficult exercise. And I really think, particularly for people doing the work that you do, that it's even braver because it's even more challenging, because it's almost like counterintuitive and almost the opposite of what you're doing in your everyday career. That muscle that you grew, how to hold space,
Yeah.
how to give the other people space, you have to flip that and do something completely unnatural. So I think it's really brave, that what you're doing and going online, because that's also really how you can help more people.
Yeah, it's definitely how you can help. But I know, like, one of my other fears is like, oh my God, what are they going to say in the comments? Like, you open yourself up to anyone. And I think we've unfortunately grown into a society where, the internet and social media has given us this thought of, like, that we can't be touched, or like, that's probably not the right word. It's almost layer that we think it's anonymity, but it's not at all. It's really this, like, I don't want to say license to be mean, but kind of license to do whatever you want, instead of like, do I really need to say this? Is it kind? Does it really matter? Also, the robots have been another thing I didn't even know about. The bots that make comments and do this and that. That's been another challenge. But yeah, vulnerability.
Have you received any kind of criticism or bad reaction to any of your posts or any of on your social? Or is it a fear? Are you
I
scared
think
of
it's
it, but you
fear
haven't?
because I've seen it with others. I have not experienced it,
Mm-hmm.
but I've only posted like pictures and graphics. So we'll see. I don't know. I know I've seen other therapists and their wonderful posts, and then I've seen the comments, and I'm like, okay. So I think it is a fear that hasn't happened yet, and will it? I have no idea. But the only way I'm going to find out is if I walk through that fear. And if it does happen, then I have to see, like, very grounded in myself and know that even if that person says or thinks that, that's not who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, no matter what you post, people will have feelings about it, and you can't always please everyone. Not everyone will agree. So it's just part of it.
And exercise and taking our own advice.
Exactly. Sometimes it's easier said than done.
Yes.
And I want to talk about how you can balance the business side of things, like hiring, scaling, operations, with staying connected to client care.
No, that is a big thing. So I've made a lot of mistakes. So that's part of it, is I've made, we all fear making the mistake, and then you do it and you're like, okay, I learned something, and trying to be humble and take that in. It's really checking in with myself on balancing and having a team. That has really helped, as well as clarifying what my values are, what the company's values are, and then hiring based on that. We're also incredibly transparent. We will tell you in the interview absolutely everything. We will show you your pay scale. This is how it works. And that has helped a lot. Be like, take it or leave it. This is exactly what you're going to get. No guesswork. I think that has helped too, for people to say, like, no, that's not for me. And for people to say, yes, it is.
And Katie, when we met, you mentioned the stigma about being a female entrepreneur and the sideways glances, the questions about time with kids that men
Yes.
never get to ask, right?
Oh, yes.
How do you handle that?
That's a really hard one, because there are days when I feel like I have it together and I'm like, okay, I balanced this well, and I'm good at, like, that not everything got done. And then there are days that I have to deal with my own stuff. Like, for example, today I did not wear makeup. I did not have time because there's too many things to balance. And I know coming into the building, I got looks for that I look tired, because, no one would say to a man like, oh, are you okay? And I go, yes, I'm just not wearing makeup. And I've actually said that. And so it's hard, like, I want to spend time with my son and my husband and my friends. And so it's really seeing, like, checking in with myself and that self-care. And, like, you talked about the compassion fatigue, but what fills my cup? Really getting clear on that over the years of, like, okay, mindlessly watching Netflix does not fill my cup. Yes, I love it. Definitely will binge watch a show or do that on occasion, watch movies with my kid. That's one new thing. Watch movies with my kid and sing along. That has started to fill my cup. So finding the things that do and checking in, like, does my sense of urgency is not real. Like, just because I feel like this has to get done now, like checking that, does it actually have to get done now? Or do I just want it to get done? And checking with that and starting to prioritize. I'm not great at prioritizing. Everything feels like it needs to happen now, but that's not the truth. And so learning that, realizing when I'm spending too much time at work or not spending enough or something's out of whack. I know for me, the more clutter on my kitchen table usually signifies that there's too much going on, because I'll just throw stuff on it and then move to the next thing. And so, I've shared with my partner, my husband, like, hey, these are what happens. And, he's like, hey, he calls me out on it. I do not like it. But sharing that with another person and talking about the stigma and how sometimes it really hurts when people like find out you have a family and they're like, but you're at work all the time. I don't know how you do it. And sometimes that's great. And sometimes it's like, it has an undertone of like, no, I think I've dealt with it by working on my own stuff and really being picky about who I spend my time with.
It's super passive aggressive. Somebody saying you have children, but you're working all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not even passive aggressive. This is straight up aggressive. This is in your face.
Yeah, it's in your face. And I think like no one would ever ask a man like, oh, you got home late and you did takeout again? No. But, we're also not encouraged. And it was an odd thing for me to reconcile and get better with, and what my own stuff was about money. Like, we're not encouraged to be like, hey, I made this much. We're not encouraged to own our power, to disagree with the system. And more that's happening, and I'm loving it. And it's still really hard. And I still have the internal stuff of like, oh, I didn't get this done, or I didn't pack my kids' lunch as well as I wanted to. And the family dinner is this, or my garden looks terrible and my house looks like a mess. And sometimes that's okay. I think it's working on your own stuff a lot so that you can stand in it and go, that's fine. This is who I am. But it's been.
Are you surrounded by a lot of other female entrepreneurs that you can talk and share about your challenges with?
Yeah, actually. So I have a business coach, and she has a community. So I get to talk to them. And then I have like 4 or 5 other friends that are group practice owners in Arizona. And so we have a continuous chat going on, and we share and we get feedback from each other. And it's never really about clients. It's about, oh my God, how do I deal with this? Or I'm struggling with that. And so it's nice to have that. We also meet up usually once every quarter or so, because getting schedules together is a little bit crazy, and just have lunch.
And Katie, I am always very impressed with the women who have young children and are running businesses.
Me too.
I'm in awe of women doing that. If somebody is thinking about having children or about to have their firstborn, is there any piece of wisdom that you would like to share that could be helpful?
Yes. And this is something I've had to work on, because I always think things can get done much faster than they are.
Me too.
I'm like, yes, we could do that, of course. And I found that with all entrepreneurs, we're like, yes, yeah, we can do that in a year. And then I'm sitting here going, actually, it's fourth quarter. We didn't really get to that because 20 other things came up. So with having a child, it kind of even slows that process down more. And first for me, that was not okay. I'm not going to lie. That was hard, because I'm like, oh no, I used to get all these things done. Well, that's not the person I am now. And that's not where where do I want to spend my energy, and what is reasonable anymore? It is not reasonable for me to be here 60 hours a week. It was not a good idea either, but it's not reasonable. And I want to be with my family. I want to set a good example. I don't want to be the person when my kid grows up and says like, oh yeah, mom was always at work. So I've had to give and take on expectations about how much I can actually get done, and to be okay with it not going nearly as fast, and that you're not going to bounce back as fast as you really think you're going to. And you may actually not want to. That was a new thing for me too, of like, oh, well, I kind of like this staying home with my kid and whatnot. That's weird. That new identity of being a mom at first clashed. with my old identity. And so being open to that growth, and that it's going to be difficult, and that it's okay, and that you're not alone in that. I think we make pregnancy like it's this beautiful, wonderful thing, and you're always happy. I have not met a pregnant woman who is really happy. I have not. It is hard to grow a human. So give yourself a lot more grace. Give yourself more time than you think. Find support. Find a mommy group. I don't care if you cringe at that. You need people who are going through the same thing. I used to not understand when parents would, the goal with children is keeping them alive. Now I totally understand why that's a thing. My son has no fear, no concept of gravity, has so much energy. I'm like, okay, we're just trying to keep him from not killing himself in the house because he can jump off something. And so having other moms, even if they're not entrepreneurs, go, oh my God, my kid did this today. Oh yeah, been there, done that. Try this. So having that support in such a different way than my work life has been incredible. Because I'm like, what am I doing? What did I do? Because I definitely did have that moment at the hospital when we were leaving, and I'm like, oh my God, they're letting me leave. They're letting me do this. And so having, it's like it takes a village to raise a child, and unfortunately, a lot of that has gone away. So finding your village, whatever resources that is, finding those supports was really helpful. And it took me a while to do it. And I wish I would have known in advance to really search for that. So chill on your expectations. You're not going to get as much as you want to get done. Find support and be okay that your identity will change and that your priorities will too. Those are my three things.
Those are great pieces of, I call them the golden nuggets of wisdom. And Katie, if you had to give yourself, your 20-year-old self, a piece of advice, what would it be?
Slow down.
You mentioned that before, that you feel that you create your own sense of emergency, but the emergency is not real.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. So I think not all entrepreneurs, but some of us can relate to being that perfectionist and being the straight A student, being that. I wish I had gotten a few more B's and enjoyed things a little more, because after I left grad school, no one has ever asked my GPA. No one has. It's like this little thing on my diploma on a wall that people sometimes glance at. So I wish I could have enjoyed things a little more and done a little less homework, a little less perfectionism, been a little more spontaneous.
Yeah, absolutely. I am with you. This is a great share, Katie. And what's about to happen for the business? Anything coming up for the next year? Anything that you would like to announce?
We're definitely going to start our IOP. We've gotten our facility license through the state, so we're just negotiating with the insurances. We're also going to be starting some other groups, one in particular, just once a week groups. One is actually a Dungeons and Dragons therapeutic one. So I'll be really interested. One of my therapists has gotten certified in that and is a therapeutic game master. So we're excited to bring that out and see that other way to do it. We're going to be running some more groups, growing our internship program so that we can create or grow more competent therapists for the times ahead. And then if we have enough time, which we may not, we have a lot of companies that have moved to Arizona. They're fleeing to California and Arizona, or from California to Arizona and Texas. And we're in the middle of a huge tech area. And so I would like to start reaching out to the HR companies and providing more mental health awareness and what that looks like.
Where can people find you, Katie?
People can find us at Inner Balance AZ. We're there. We're in Tempe, Arizona. We have 2 and Mesa, Arizona. But yeah, just Google us. You'll find us. And poke around to see who we are.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Katie, for coming on the show today and sharing your vulnerabilities, your pieces of wisdom so openly. It was really a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And that wraps up today's episode. I am Annelise Calles, and I can't wait to join you again next week. Thank you, Katie. Thanks for listening to Parlez-Vous CEO today. If you enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star review. It helps us keep going. And connect with us on Instagram at Parlez-Vous CEO. I am Annelise Calles, and I know some days are harder than others. On those tough days, think back to why you started. What you're doing today matters, even when you can't see the results yet. Ideas are great, but it's what you do with them that counts. Find everything we talked about today at parlezvousceo.com. See you next week, and you've got this.